Hi there, it's Riikka here, and we're doing some cards today, but let me first check from my computer if that would be like the way to see actually your comments, and also that everything is working. Let's see. Yes, it seems that at least there's something happening. I need to put the voices off, so hopefully if I get any comments, they will appear on the screen and I can actually then see your comments. Yes, today I'm doing some mixed media cards using I have a craft o'clock that I can say. Paper collection called Hazy Street. It's this lovely minty tones. Hi Ellen. Oh, actually, no, there's... Yay! Comments on the screen. Perfect, there again changed something on Facebook. Wonderful, I can actually see the comments. Usually it's a problem. So if you can just give me a thumbs up if you can see and hear me. So we can start making these mixed media cards. As I said, I'm using the Craft O'Clock collection, but there's a lot of different kind of mixed media elements, so you can use whatever paper you have at hand naturally. Okay, and I think we have a focusing issue again, so I really need to remember to keep that in mind. Thank you, Ellen. I'm really excited to be on Seth's design team, or creative team, sorry. So, unfortunately, I made these cards before I knew I was on the team. Hey, Lena! So, there's not Seth's products in these as such, but hey, you can always change some of the products for Seth's or add some. I can show you a little peek of the next live I'm doing with Craft O'Clock. So, because that has Seth products, this is what I'm doing next month. Different paper collection, but here's some Seth products as well. A little sneak peek. Just finished it. But yeah, let's get started with the cards and enough about the babbling. So, they are both made using the same collection and same elements, just as you can see, flipped in a way. So, the first thing I'm going to do is make my card base. Naturally, you can use your ready-made versions, but I didn't have this minty tone that the paper collection has, so I just took an A4 sized paper and do the card base myself. I really like to make kind of tall cards. Somehow this kind of gothic appearance is talking to me, so it's not the usual, I speak in centimeters, sorry, but the 10 by 15, but this is taller. So I just cut a 21 centimeters piece of paper and then put a score line in the middle. So that's how the width is the same as in a kind of regular A4 sized card, but there's more height. Here we go. So that is going to be the base when we reach that phase. And this one is coming on top, like in the ready versions, just to kind of highlight the pattern paper. So this is again a piece of just white cardstock. Let me just get the other blade off and the cutting version here. And then let's pick which paper to use for this card. This is the Hazy Street collection, and there's lovely vintage tones in it, but also I fell in love with the minty kind of color that it has. But you can go grungy or you can go more romantic, whatever you kind of feel like at the moment. But as you can see, I've got a piece from this paper already, so let's go with this one. And then about 9 centimeters. And a little less than 20. So let's see. Hopefully I got the measurements correct. Need to a little bit trim off from the height so it will fit. This is kind of unusual for me to actually measure anything. Usually I'm just eyeballing everything. But now that I have a certain piece that I'm going to be using as a card base and the white kind of edge, I need to measure something. Then let's attach the patterned paper to the white version, and I'm using just double-sided tape. Depending on paper you're using, this is actually not paper but cardstock, so it's sturdy enough to hold the mediums. But especially if you're using paper, then backing it up with a sturdier piece of cardboard or another paper even might do the trick so it doesn't buckle up so much. My floor is going to be a mess after this because I'm just throwing everything to the floor. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer. A bit too much, sorry. Let's go a little bit back. Just that you can see the details better when I actually start making something more interesting than just cutting paper. So now we have our base ready. Naturally you could do it without the white frame, just the patterned paper, but this one makes it a bit more sturdier. And also I like that the inky layers or the layers coming on top kind of continue to the rim. So if I happen now to get some paint to it, it doesn't matter. It's okay. Just kind of going with the flow. What I'm now adhering to it, it's just regular masking tape. It's kind of my go-to if I'm, well, a way to break the blank page, to give it something. So this is really easy solution. Just some masking tape. And I can tear it also, because usually what frightens us is the kind of, there's endless possibilities with a blank page. So maybe we're puzzled by all the options we have. So just my kind of guideline or tip would be just add something, because most of the time you can then add something other on top if you don't like what you've added in the first place. But it's just kind of keep that momentum going, just adding something and then adding and adding, and finally you end up with lovely layers. But if you overthink it, it might take forever to get started or finish anything. So next up, this is just white gesso. And as you can see, I'm not covering the whole thing, and I'm not going for a smooth layer. I'm actually kind of using the silicone brush as a stamp of sorts, kind of just dabbing some of the paint so it has this lovely, a little bit of texture. Come on, focus. There we go. Little bit of texture to it. And also it's not looking like I've added a segment of gesso. It's more like a painty texture, just kind of masking the edge where the gesso is and where there's not gesso. This gesso, as most of the stuff I guess we paper crafters use, is acrylic based. So it's really quick to dry. But let me use the heat tool just a little bit to get things going faster. Oops, sorry. Next I'm adding a little bit of ink on top, so it's good to have the base at least, well, it's not totally dry, but I'll manage. If you want to keep your tools in pristine shape, then please dry the whole layer, because now when I'm using the inking tool on top, it probably gets ruined with the gesso, but I don't want you to watch me dry too long. Thank you for coming today, everybody. This is a guest design project for a Polish paper brand, and I'm really excited to kind of share some little tips, maybe what I use, because for example the first layer, masking tape plus gesso, is a kind of go-to whenever I'm feeling I need grunge something up a little bit, but to keep that kind of softness or romantic feel. So that's an easy way to create layers without adding too much of dark or grungy stuff. So now I used a stencil and some ink. This one is distress ink, just to keep that tea tone that there's going on in the paper collection. And then let's do the dimensional layer first. I'm using an icing paste, so this is dimensional kind of modeling paste, but a really shiny version. This one is from the Finnaber line. If you don't have the exact the same, naturally you can use white one and then add color on top, or try to color the white one with metallic acrylic paint, for example. But remember, if you're using modeling paste that's white, then there's the white pigment, so what color you are then adding on top makes it a tint, so it kind of lightens it up. If you want something like this, so a thick paste with metallic effect, you can always use gel medium and add some colorants or, for example, mica powder in it, and then you get this really thick paste you can use to make dimensional layers if you don't have the exact same product. It's kind of using what you have. I just happen to have this, so it's easy for me, but you can create the similar effect using mica powder and gel medium. And the stencil I was using is from a Finnish brand. I just felt that this kind of 19th century roses are really fabulous. So now we have some layers already going. There's the inking, there's the raised layers, and then I'm going to add something I add to almost every project, which is splashes. For this particular project, the first splashes I'm going to add are the shiny, whoopsie, let me try to focus. There we go. Shiny acrylic paint ones. When I was getting stuff ready, I totally forgot about a brush, but luckily it's not far away. So this is shiny metallic acrylic paint. I'm diluting it just a bit with water so I can get splashes more easily. This particular one is called unicorn hair, or if I remember correctly, yeah. So it's really shiny. Whose stencil was that? Do you mean the rose one or the previous one? The one I used with inks was a Prima Marketing from the Finnaber line, and this rosy one is Kovasin. It's a Finnish little brand. I can actually add the name afterwards because the name is in Finnish, but it's KW then SADE, but I'm gonna add the link. Now let's move this aside for just a while, so hopefully I don't have to dry that too much, because I can add then some embossing powder. I was thinking kind of what to do with paper, how to use it in different ways. Well, not different, but I die cut some elements, as you can see, just using a Sizzix die. Some leaves and a picture wheel. But naturally, if you don't have dies, you can just hand cut them, and there's a lot of paper elements in the collections. The rose, yeah, that's Kovasin. Paper elements that you can cut out, like fussy cutting. So what we can then do to these pieces of paper to turn them maybe a bit more interesting or a bit more like embellishing stuffs is to add clear embossing powder on top. Hey Jonna! So I was thinking that maybe gives them a little bit of extra appearance, and these are then, whoops, now we can see, these are then chipboard from the same collection. But let's do the clocks. I'm not sure which one I'm going to use, so that let's do both. Now I can find there. So nothing too fancy, just pressing it to an embossing ink pad and then adding a clear glossy layer on top. If you don't have embossing powders, the other option to have that kind of a clear coating on top would be using acrylic, what is it called? Lacquer, to get that glossy finish. I'm actually using my card base to get the powders back to the jar. And if one layer doesn't do the trick, you can always add more. Or then if you have thick embossing enamel, which means it has a bigger grain size, then use that the first go to get a thicker lovely layer. As we were talking about Seth's products, ice is something that, yeah, Seth Beeswax embossing powder, yeah, definitely, that's also a good, or then the ice, which is kind of an acrylic glaze, that would also work beautifully with these. I ordered some of the ice just a week ago or something, and have tried it a couple of times, and I'm totally in love. So probably it's going to be something I'm using a lot in my future projects. Come on. You could use the Seth's beeswax powder, or then just actual beeswax. Especially with chipboard that would work. I'm not totally sure how translucent the paper version of the embellishment would then turn, because it's wax. It's always fun to kind of add something extra to store-bought or ephemera that you find. That way you're kind of making it your own, giving it a thumbprint or your own signature. So now they have the glossy surface. Let's see, probably this is acrylic based as well, so it's getting there. I'm usually a fast and a bit impatient crafter, so we just go on and let's hope that I find the placement of the embellishments in one go, otherwise it's going to be ruining the pattern a little bit. But again, that might cause an interesting effect. So this is just die cut from the collection. It's kind of giving the base to my composition, as you can see from the ready sample. And as you can also see, I'm kind of concentrating around the area where everything is going to be. There's some untreated areas, kind of giving the eye time to rest. But then everything is pulling into the main thing. Then I have a tag cut from the elements that there is. Then a little bit of twine to add some extra to it. Here we go. That's kind of the base. Then maybe like that. That one. I guess I'm going with the bigger one. Then let me rummage through from the little. Oh, that key is actually quite interesting, don't you think? Maybe like that. maybe to kind of tie everything together, as there's the masking tape in the bottom layers or layers below. Let's add some to the tag, kind of repeating what we already have going on there. I'll just pop that in. Should I add another? Yeah, more is more. As you can see, I don't think too much when I'm creating. It's kind of trial and error. I really get annoyed with myself if I'm overthinking, if I'm using time to kind of fiddle around with little things. But I really admire people that actually can and will take the time to make the project and composition, because I really can't. I tried it a couple of times to kind of slow things down and I was hopeless. The project didn't end up at all how I imagine it and the way I wanted it to be. So we all have our own ways to create, and it's just fabulous. Being a fast crafter, going with the flow, really just jumping to decisions is hey baby, is my way to go. And that's kind of what I try to tip, because sometimes if you overthink, if you kind of, for example, move this clock around, because until you adhered it or adhered these with stapler or something, there's almost an endless possibility to move the elements around. But the first decision you make might actually make things easier for you, because then you have something put, you have a decision made, you have to work around it rather than fiddle around all the elements a long time trying to find the perfect place, because there's a multitude of options where you could put them. It's like possibility, it's endless possibilities until you add here something. I'm actually changing from the key to this butterfly just because I want to repeat the round shape I have here in the die cut and also in these elements. So to my eye this looks better than this one. If I would put this, then something round should be added here, at least. That's how I see the thing. So let's add here this without further thinking. And I was talking when I actually adhered this one, so I used just foam tape to kind of give it a dimensional feel. I'm really terrible at making flat projects. I usually go for the height. So there's different elements in my crafts that then create three-dimensional dimension. Sorry, and not just kind of pattern dimension or texture. Then, as it's a sweet project of some sorts, let's add a paper flower there. If you're not a paper flower type of crafter, by all means add a rusty washer, for example. Just, we want to be a little bit cutesy. Then dabbing some teeny tiny elements. This is my saying, and I'm guessing it will go there. Yes. Yes. Then this collection had these teeny tiny little buttons that I felt that were really cute. And there's two ways. This one, okay, you can't see anything because it's so teeny tiny. I cut by hand, but as it's so small, it was hard. So I actually used punch, like a hole punch, to make those. But then they are even smaller. And also, when I'm cutting the button just by hand, let me try to show you from the finished version. I think that's more interesting because it's not totally round. It has these little edges, so it's more kind of personal looking than these that are made with a punch. But again, it's a question of how much time do you want to use? What's kind of your style? Do you want it to be focused? Yeah. Do you want it to be neat, like a total circle, or do you want it to have some more edge? These I prepared beforehand. There's just a foam dot underneath, and as you can see, I'm going for a triangle kind of composition with those. Then it's just a couple of details, some sequins. You can use naturally just crystals, half pearls, buttons, whatever you have. I just happen to have these kind of minty sequins that fitted the color scheme really well. So I added some of those. Again, not too much thinking, just blobbing some adhesive in there, and then adding the sequins on top. The only down part is now, where did I put it? Did I cover everything? Yes, I guess I did. Naturally, if you want, you can just do one by one. One, two, three, four. Now it's uneven number, but I still think that maybe there. And then I need one more. Where? There. And then let's be satisfied with it. Then there's just 3 more things to turn this into this. First of all is this. I felt the cards started to be too cutesy, so I added a little bit of grunginess to them just by tearing and opening. And then adding some patterned paper underneath, kind of just peeking through. I want that part, so let me cut. then a couple of staples to adhere it. I use a stapler a lot when I'm doing paper layers. It's so handy and quick, like so. So now there's a little bit of extra in there. Then let's put some double-sided tape here, adhere it to the card base, and then the final touch is to add some white gesso splashes on top. And again, I'm adhering to it to the card base, so if some white paint is left to the card base as well, it doesn't matter. It's kind of tying everything together. But if you don't want that, then do the splashes beforehand and then just adhere it after drying. I'm kind of carefree when I'm adding the double-sided tape, so it's not totally in the edge and there's just some strips. Depending how sturdy you want it to be, naturally you can use a thicker version and add a lot more. I'm happy with that. So almost done. Then let's add the white splashes just still. And again we have a focusing issue. There we go. I should always remember to have something dark near my project, so then it might stay focused all the time. This is just the white gesso I used in the background. Naturally you can go with any color, acrylic paint, even watercolor, but watercolor is translucent, whereas acrylic paints, at least gesso, is opaque. There's different acrylic paints, so they might be translucent as well, but this is kind of giving it that cutesy, shabby chic might be the word look. Then let's remove some of the splashes so you can still read the text. And there we go. All done. So just embossing powder to give that clock, which is now maybe partly shown, some glossiness. Then there's different kinds of layers, flat and dimensional ones. And now I remove one of the sequins, but doesn't matter. Then just a little trick to add some interest to the card by making a little tear in the end through all the layers and just clustering, kind of guiding the eye in. So thank you for watching, and I'll say good night to Finnish viewers. Kiitoksia, että olitte kurkkimassa ja hyvää yötä. No, ehkä ei nyt ihan yötä, mutta iltaa nyt ainakin. And well, thank you and have a lovely day or evening, morning, depending where you are. Thank you so much, and well, I'll be seeing you hopefully in about a month when I'm doing this. And well, there's a couple of more lives coming up with different brands, so stay tuned. All the links and stuff are in my Instagram or blog. So thank you. Bye.